Hello, today on my channel you will hear an amazing story about life. I hope you enjoy this story. This one struck me to the core. Honestly, I still can't forget it. Enjoy watching.
Hurrying home, Selena flew on the wings of happiness. Tonight she had another date with a man, and not just any man, but a gorgeous man named Archie. He was a young, but already quite famous movie director, had a luxurious appearance and mysterious dark eyes with a mist. A man of such a rank was rather supposed to meet with actresses who, by the way, almost all were crazy about Archie and flirted with him all over the place. And he, strangely enough, turned his attention to Selena, a modest costumer at the movie studio. At first it seemed suspicious to the woman, and from dates with the director, she refused for a long time, but the man was persistent. Selena gave in to his entreaties, agreed once to go with him to a restaurant. Archie turned out to be very well-read and interesting conversationalist, as well as Selena herself. The time spent together flew by unnoticed. They had a lot in common and could talk for hours. This had never happened before in Selena's life. She had never considered herself a beauty, but apparently men did not share this opinion, as she had many admirers. With one of them she even lived in a civil marriage for about 3 years, but the relationship gradually came to naught. As if everything faded, mutual reproaches, scandals began, and parting brought only relief. This was to be expected, because Selena initially realized that this is not her man, but thought, as the people say, will endure, will fall in love. It didn't. Selena had some fleeting romances, but nothing serious. Not the kind of thing that would make her want to continue growing into a family. Selena's not a girl anymore. She just turned 34, and she, like any woman, badly wanted a family and children. And that's also why the woman for a long time cherished Hala from Archie Platinov, instinctively feeling that he is too good for her. Serious relationship with her he will not want. So, a fleeting romance, but Selena did not want to waste time on it. But the affair did happen, and Selena's head was blown off. She couldn't think of anything but Archie. Running into her apartment and looking at her watch, Selena began to frantically change, throwing off her clothes as she went. In half an hour, Archie would be waiting for her at one of Washington's restaurants, and she wasn't quite ready. Suddenly, a bold thought crossed Selena's mind. She stopped fidgeting and sank down on the edge of the bed in her bedroom to mull over the thought. Well, why? We've been dating Archie for a month now. I think about him all the time. And nothing has happened between us yet. Maybe it's time we did. What if I asked him back to my place? I have to be honest with myself. I really want to. Isn't it too soon? Won't he think badly of me? Whatever happens. Selena grabbed the phone and realizing that at any minute she might change her mind, quickly called Archie. The man was glad of the invitation. You could hear it in his voice. He said he'd be at her place in half an hour. The woman quickly ran through the apartment, gathering up the things she had recently thrown away in her hurry to get to her date. She looked around. Everything seemed to be in order and clean. Selena's house was always clean, even though she never invited anyone over, and she had her reasons. As Archie stepped through the threshold of her apartment, he whistled in admiration. What a place! You rent this apartment? How many rooms are there? Selena shrugged nonchalantly. No, I don't. It's my apartment and it has 4 rooms. Wow, a huge 4-room apartment in the center of Washington, Archie said. You're a rich bride. I didn't expect that. You know, I try to keep it quiet. Nobody at the movie studio knows. And I don't invite anyone to visit me. At my previous job, after I organized a party for colleagues at home, I have too many obsessive suitors. And they were mostly from out of town. You know what I mean? I think I'm starting to. But for me, you cannot worry. I do not pretend to your apartment, only for you. With these words, the man pulled Selena to him and kissed her. That night, Archie stayed until morning and they went to the movie studio together, which of course the woman was not very happy about. At work, she tried to hide their relationship, and apparently for good reason. When their affair became known, on Selena sprinkled slanted, envious glances, and the leading actress began to build costume designer all sorts of intrigues. But by then, Selena didn't care about any of that, and to small troubles at work, she treated with humor. The woman was happy, too happy, and it frightened her. Selena was afraid of how she would be able to bear the separation when she got bored with Archie and he broke up with her. And that he would break up, Selena was sure of that. It was only a matter of time. What could she possibly tie a man like him to her? What did she do to deserve him? Nothing. If it had been another man, Selena might have thought that her huge apartment might have attracted him. But Archie, though he wasn't, he made good money, very good money. He had an expensive car, and from the looks of it, he didn't need the money. But Selena had not told him the whole truth that night when Archie had first stayed with her. In addition to the apartment, the woman had a decent bank account and shares in a well-known company, the income from which she received monthly. Selena could not work, she had something to live on, but she could not sit at home. The pressure of loneliness. Selena owed everything she had to her father. 10 years ago, when her mother died after a long illness, her father had not long remained an inconsolable widower, marrying the young girl. With this girl he had gone abroad to live permanently. And Selena left the apartment and money, as if wishing to pay off his daughter, who found out that his girl was his father's mistress while his mother was still alive. Since then, her father had cut Selena out of his life, calling her only a couple times a year, on her birthday and New Year's Eve. Selena didn't take offense, but for some reason, after her father's calls, she felt her loneliness even more acutely. But not lately. When Selena started dating Archie, her life took on new colors. The man stayed over more and more often, and in the mornings, they drove to work together. That's why Selena's apartment was filled with men's things, like a razor in the bathroom, his toothbrush. And one day, Archie surprised Selena with a question. "Would you like me to move in with you?" Selena, who hadn't expected this at all, was confused. "What do you mean, move in? Are you proposing to live together?" "Yes, I am. I already spend almost every night at your place. Let's try living together. I'm not asking you to get married. It's too big a step for me. We should try a relationship first. So far, I feel good with you, like we're two halves of the same whole. And then life will tell. So how do you feel about cohabitation?" The man in one hand held a cup of coffee, which he tried to drink on the run, and with his other hand pulled Selena to himself. And she, not believing her happiness, nodded her head in agreement. "Yes, of course. I agree. Move in with me." Selena and Archie had been living together for a year when he proposed to her. It was no surprise to the woman. After a year of living together, she could believe that they could have a family. Archie was not a typical representative of the movie industry, but quite a homely man. In the evenings, he liked to read books with Selena. Their taste in literature coincided, and after reading, they vigorously discussed the plot and characters. Also, they liked to go to the theater, to the movies, and in general, they were interesting together. So Archie's proposal was not a surprise for Selena, especially since recently, cleaning the apartment, she accidentally stumbled upon a diamond ring hidden in the closet. And of course, Selena accepted the proposal. How could she not? You can't say no when you're sure you've met your soulmate. But there was one thing. Shortly before proposing to Selena, Archie called her to a frank conversation. This conversation was about children. Selena had long ago begun to notice how her man shied away from anything to do with children. It made her a little uneasy. Once, after a visit to the movie theater, Selena and Archie decided to get some air and walk home. And the woman had dragged Archie into a children's store, just to test her hunch, and her fears began to be confirmed. The more she admired the baby stuff, the darker Archie became. And that same evening when she got home, the man started this conversation. "Selena, I can see your unmistakable innuendo. Lately, you've been getting more and more excited about cute babies, and I see what this is all about. But I'm sorry, I don't share your enthusiasm, and I want to set the record straight. There will be no children in our relationship ever." Archie said what he said, and it hit Selena over the head. "What do you mean, never? I don't get it. You mean our relationship with you is so casual that you're not planning on having kids with me? That's where you're totally wrong. It's very serious for me, and I'm planning on starting a family with you. And if at first I thought I just liked you, now I can say with certainty that I love you, Selena, and I want to be with you always. But I'm not going to cheat on you. I don't want to have children ever. You can either accept that or not. It's up to you." Selena was frightened, fighting back the coming tears. How could this be? Breaking up with Archie was beyond her. But what was the point of living without children? The woman had long been ready to feel the joy of motherhood, and she had a huge secret, which she carefully hid from Archie. She was already pregnant, and she'd done it almost on purpose, having stopped using protection. It seemed right to her at the time. She didn't do it to keep a man around. No, not at all. She just wanted a child, a baby. a child with this man, her favorite man. Selena began to dream that she was holding her baby in her arms. At the time, she had never imagined Archie's attitude toward children. But now that he had expressed it to her, she was frightened, very frightened. Archie, meanwhile, taking Selena's fright for thought, seized her hands and began to coax her. "Selena, come on, what's wrong with the two of us? We can live freely, travel freely, and nothing is holding us back. Did we go to Paris with you? And if we had a child, could we afford that trip? No? And no again. I've never understood why family life has to be centered around children. A family is two people who want to be together. It doesn't have to be cemented by children. You want to wash dirty diapers, stay up all night, and all those baby aches and pains. It's a nightmare." Shocked, Selena was silent, and Archie, taking her silence for consent, kissed her cheek and went to the kitchen to cook dinner. The man loved to cook, and his meals were always exquisite. A couple weeks after that conversation, Archie proposed to Selena, and he took her acceptance as a woman's acceptance of all his conditions regarding children. And Selena? Well, Selena, her heart was torn to pieces. Of course, there was still the option of terminating the pregnancy since the term was still small, but she didn't even consider that option. She was already 35 years old, and the baby would come when she was 36. And if she got rid of him now, what then? Wait for Archie to change his mind. What if he never did? She hadn't said this to Archie then, but for her the idea of a family was the exact opposite. A family must have children, but the most important thing was not even that, but that she herself wanted a child. Archie and Selena married modestly, without too much fuss. They both disliked noisy parties and crowds of people, preferring to spend time together. After the wedding, however, they sat in the restaurant, inviting only 10 people of common friends. The guests congratulated the newlyweds joyfully, noting to themselves that the bride for some reason did not look too happy, and sometimes, thinking that no one was looking at her, plunged into unhappy thoughts. Only one of those present at the table in the restaurant knew the reason for the thoughtfulness of the newlywed. It was Angela, Selena's close friend. They had been friends since high school. True, in recent years Angela had not lived in Washington, but they had not lost contact, constantly calling each other. And recently her friend had returned, divorced from her husband, and their friendship was renewed. Selena could share everything with Angela, and their last frank conversation took place just before the wedding. Angela then said, "I think you should tell Archie about your pregnancy before you get married. You can throw a slicker at me, but that's my opinion. Now it will be easier for him to accept it, but after you officially become husband and wife, and you suddenly start to grow a belly, it may seem to him that you tricked him into marrying you." Which is basically true. He's told you how he feels about fatherhood, hasn't he? He has. He's being honest with you, and you need to do the same. Selena almost cried. I can't tell him that. He'd leave me. And after the wedding, he won't. Are you so sure? Then it'll be worse. Then we'd be husband and wife. Maybe he'll take it a little easier. I hope so. You're a fool, Selena. You are a fool. That Archie of yours is such a gorgeous man. It's a dream come true. Apparently he loves you. You spend all your free time together. What do you want? Why don't you really think about getting rid of the baby? We'll do it quietly. I'll help you. Archie won't find out. And then you can marry him with peace of mind. I don't have kids either, and I've been married, and in more ways than one. So what? Nothing. Children are not the end of the world. No, Selena screamed then. I'll never do that. This baby is mine. I need it. Selena pressed her hands to her still flat belly and stroked it as if to soothe the life that was budding there, comforting and letting her know how important this new life was to her. After the wedding, little had changed in Selena and Archie's lives, except for the wedding rings on their fingers, and otherwise life went on as usual. The newlyweds were always together. Archie began planning a new trip. This time he wanted to visit Italy with his wife, and actively discussed it with Selena, who was more silent. It was unlikely that this trip would take place. By the time Archie planned it, Selena would already have a visible belly, and it would be impossible to hide the obvious. Selena tightened her belly as best she could with special underwear. Archie was already starting to joke that she put on weight. So much for his delicious cooking. The man, of course, did not suspect that the reason for his wife's fullness was not his delicious dinners. And Selena remained silent. What was she hoping for? She didn't know what she was hoping for. She wanted to prolong the moments of happiness in married life. And of course, yes, in the depths of her soul lived the hope that her husband would accept her pregnancy when it was too late to change anything. In front of her husband, Selena carefully concealed her morning toxicosis, but at the movie studio, colleagues have already begun to notice how acutely the woman reacts to pungent odors and how often goes to the bathroom. Women are not deceived in such things. And it happened, which Selena could not have foreseen. One of the female employees of the movie studio hurried to congratulate Archie on the upcoming paternity. The man laughed, answering her that she was wrong, but suspicion crept into his soul, and he wondered. There were oddities in his wife's behavior lately, and the fact that she had begun to gain weight. The man himself immediately dismissed his suspicions. No, it just couldn't be. Selena couldn't do that to him. She had accepted his attitude towards children by marrying him. But nevertheless, that evening, being with his wife in the kitchen and arranging another of his culinary creations on plates, Archie said with a slight chuckle, "Imagine I was congratulated today on my impending fatherhood." The fork clinked loudly against the plate, falling out of Selena's hands, and seeing his wife tense up, Archie was startled. "Selena, why don't you say something? Did you hear what I just said?" The woman continued to remain silent with her head low over the kitchen table. Then Archie threw the pan of food on the stove, pulled up a chair with a single tug, and sat down opposite his wife. "Look at me, Selena. Refute my words, I beg you. You couldn't have done this to me, could you?" "Yes, I could. You know I could. I'm such a bastard," Selena muttered, not raising her eyes to her husband. Archie turned pale. He couldn't make sense of what Selena had done. He asked how long it was, and when he heard that it was the 4th month, he exploded. "What are you talking about? 4th month? You were already pregnant when we got married, and you couldn't have known about it. Why would you do that to me? Why would you do that to me?" And then Selena became hysterical. She raised her head, looked at her husband, and screamed, shaking with sobs. "Why? Why do this to you? All the time about yourself. What about me? Did you think about me? I want a child. I want a child more than anything in the world. And I wanted it with you because I love you. Yes, I didn't tell you the truth. You can call it a lie, but I just can't understand why would a baby be a problem for our family? We can't go anywhere for a while until he's a little older. So what? I'm 35 years old, don't you understand? I'm right to be the mother. It's such a blessing to give birth to someone you love." Selena tried to take Archie's hand that was on the table, but he yanked it away sharply, and in a hard voice, which she had never heard in her address, asked, "So it turns out that option of interruption you did not even consider?" Selena, unable to say anything, shook her head negatively, and Archie continued. "In fact, I have not told you everything about my past. There are some things that are hard to remember and even harder to tell. You know, I was married. The reason I gave for the divorce was incompatibility of character, but that's not true. We divorced when we lost our daughter." Selena looked up at her husband with surprised eyes. "Yes, you've heard me. I had a child. She was 4 years old when an acute form of pneumonia killed her in a couple days. Misdiagnosis played a part, and then it was too late. Do you have any idea how painful it is to watch your child die and you can't help? I lost a part of myself in my grief, and everything around me ceased to interest me. I wanted to go to sleep and never wake up again. And my wife and I couldn't continue our life together. We couldn't look at each other. And that's when I decided I would never have children again. The world around us is full of suffering, and we have no right to condemn innocent babies to it. I warned you about my decision. I didn't lie to you. I don't want to see you anymore. I'm going to bed." Archie left for the bedroom, slamming the door loudly behind him. And the way he did it, Selena realized he wasn't expecting her there. The woman curled up on the couch in the next room all night, and early in the morning, she heard her husband packing his things. Selena pretended to sleep as Archie wandered through the rooms folding his suitcase. When the woman heard her husband putting his shoes on in the hallway, she got up and, as if drunk, walked out to him. She froze in the doorway, resting her head against the door jamb. "Are you leaving?" she asked in a faint voice. "Yes, Selene, I'm leaving." "What were you waiting for?" "I've been thinking a lot this night, and I've decided that maybe I'm not right to blame you. You're a woman, and every woman longs for motherhood. But that means only one thing. You've made your choice. I don't want to see that baby ever. For that matter, I don't want to see you with a belly either. I don't like you being pregnant. I'm not gonna divorce you yet. You can put me down as the baby's father, it's only fair. And I'll help you with money, but that's it. That's all you could count on. Saying all this, Archie didn't look at Selena, and having said that, tried to leave the apartment as quickly as possible. He had a hard time doing so, as besides the bulky suitcase there were 3 huge bags of his belongings. Trying to take everything at once, not to come back again, thought Selena, grinning bitterly. The woman had to take a cab to get to work, as she had never bothered to buy a car. She didn't need one. She and her husband traveled together. Archie was not at the movie studio. He didn't show up the next few days either. And about a week later, the rumor that Archie will no longer be here. Colleagues looked at Selena with pity, and many with gloating. What did she expect? They whispered in corners that he would live with her forever. Strange that he'd signed with her. Now you have to divorce her. But the main thing was that the end was predictable. Angela came over to Selena's house last night and started giving her a hard time too. No, what did you want? You knew it all along. I warned you, remember? It was still possible to terminate the pregnancy. You've lost such a man. Angela could have gone on and on, but when she saw Selena's eyes fade, she realized she was hurting her even more. Then she hugged her friend by the shoulders and led her to the kitchen. Hey buddy, let's go get some tea. You and I won't be drinking anything stronger for a while. Don't be sour. You wanted a child and you're going to have one. Financially, you're a very independent woman. You can provide for your baby. And men. What men? They come and go. Now you need to pull yourself together. Don't be sad and eat well. Selena waddled from foot to foot like a duck to the kitchen. She was a little while away from giving birth, and her belly was huge. Therefore, she could not move like before. But in spite of that, she was baking her specialty muffins. Angela had promised to come over, which Selena was very happy about. Having gone on maternity leave, she missed socializing. Sitting all day alone in the huge apartment was hard. Angela, seeing how her friend was moping, tried to visit her more often, but it was not always possible. Selena was taking muffins out of the oven when she heard the doorbell ring. She was happy and hurried to open the door. When she opened the door, the woman's face changed. At the threshold, instead of the expected Angela, stood Archie. Selena hadn't seen him since he packed his things and left the apartment in a hurry. The man hadn't shown up at the movie studio either, apparently not wanting to meet his wife. Never called her once, just disappeared from her life, and that's all. The ring on Selena's finger and the constant longing remained as a reminder of him. A storm of emotions ran across the woman's face as she looked at her husband standing in the entryway, and a bunch of thoughts ran through her head. And suddenly there was a sudden hope. What if he changed his mind? What if he came to stay? But that hope vanished when Archie stepped into the hallway without asking permission and handed Selena the keys to her apartment. I forgot to give them to you. Here, I brought them. I didn't dare open it and go in myself. Archie held the keys in his outstretched hand for a moment, but seeing that Selena was in no hurry to take them, he put them on the nightstand in the hallway. And the woman, whose mouth was suddenly dry, asked, "Did you come just for the keys? You didn't have to bother." "No, not just for the keys. I came to say goodbye. I'm leaving." Speaking to Selena, Archie looked only at her face, carefully avoiding looking at her enormous belly, tightly covered by her robe. Selena didn't want to know anything, but Archie was silent and waiting for her to inquire, so the woman squeezed out a question. "Going away? For how long?" "Yes, hopefully forever. I have a friend in Germany, invited me to work there, not exactly in my profile, of course, but that's okay. I hope I can prove myself and do better." Selena's heart was leaping out of her chest. There he was, standing in front of her, so beloved, so dear to her. She wanted to reach out, touch him, press herself against his chest, but at the same time, it was already a stranger, aloof man, averting his eyes. Why had he come at all? What was this goodbye for? A text would have been easier. And to talk to him, and even more so to see him, knowing that now it's a stranger, just unbearable. Suddenly, black flies danced in Selena's eyes, and the room swam as if spinning on its axis, and at the same time something hot flowed down her legs. Lowering her eyes and struggling to focus her gaze, Selena saw red sweat on her ankles. "Oh my God, it's blood." The woman thought before she passed out, "I lost Archie and now I'm losing my baby. This is my punishment for my lies." Archie saw Selena's face turn white as all the blood rushed away from him and immediately flowed down the woman's legs. She staggered and began to fall. The man managed to pick his wife up before she hit the floor. And then there was a scream behind Archie's back. "What did you do to her, you bastard? What did you do to her?" It was Angela, the one Selena had been waiting for. She entered the half-open door of the apartment and saw a frightening picture of Archie kneeling on his knees, holding Selena bleeding and unconscious in his arms. "I didn't do anything," the man shouted. "Ambulance, call an ambulance." The man couldn't wait for the doctor to come up to the apartment. He grabbed Selena in his arms and went downstairs with her to wait for the ambulance at the entrance. In the ambulance, the woman came to her senses and with tears began to beg the doctor to save her baby. She no longer paid attention to Archie, who was also riding in the ambulance. Now she only cared about the baby. Angela and Archie had been wandering the hospital corridor for quite some time. They had been told that labor had begun, but was going on with complications. After a few hours, the doctor came out to them and addressed Archie, since he was officially the husband of the woman in labor. "Your wife can't give birth. We're deciding now, but it's likely she'll have to have a C-section. And I have to ask you whose life is the priority? The mom's or the baby's? You may have to make that difficult choice." "Mom's, of course, mom's," Archie shouted without a second thought. "Say, Selena, there's not even a choice." Angela was silent, standing a little to the side. She didn't know what to say. One thing she was sure of was that Selena would not approve of this choice. But she were asked now, she would surely ask her to save the child, not her. And on the other hand, if Selena was gone, who would raise her baby? Archie obviously doesn't want him. Will he go to orphanages? The heavy thoughts made Angela clutch her head. Selena, what will happen to her when she comes to her senses and realizes that the baby is gone? Will she be able to recover from something like this? The doctor, hearing Archie's reply, left with a quick step. And once again, the dreadful wait dragged on. Selena's labor lasted almost 24 hours. Angela couldn't stay in the hospital all that time. She ran in and out again. Archie, on the other hand, didn't leave for a minute. He didn't even seem to sit down once during all this time, pacing the corridor with wide steps and a grim expression on his face. The man wouldn't even leave to eat, and he refused to drink the water Angela had handed him. Looking at the man's face, which read misery, though he tried to hide it, Angela clearly realized he loved Selena. He loved her very much. Archie looked fearfully at the doctor, who once again came out to them. But suddenly, a smile lit up the tired face of the man in the white coat. Angela, who was standing next to him, thought hopefully that all was well. And the doctor confirmed her hunch. "Thank God, we managed to save the life of both mother and child. You have a boy, a son." Archie missed the doctor's last words. After the anxiety he had suffered, he could not relax and realized that the danger was over. "What's wrong with Selena? Tell me. What's wrong with her?" "I'm telling you, your wife and child are alive. Their lives are no longer in danger. You can breathe, Daddy." The doctor came over and patted Archie on the shoulder, and he suddenly went limp, as if a spring had been loosened inside him. After the doctor left, Archie turned to Angela. "Well, I better be going. Tell Selena that even though I'll be living in Germany, I'll send them money every month." "What do you mean, you'll go?" exclaimed a dumbfounded Angela. "You're not even going to visit your wife?" "No, I won't." Archie shook his head. "You've already seen what our meeting led to. I don't want to worry Selena anymore. Nothing's changed for me. I'll leave. You don't tell her I've been here the whole time. Just tell her about the money." Archie, as if afraid to change his mind, ran down the corridor, and a confused Angela stared after him. How can it be? What is wrong with this man? Loving Selena so much, he's now running away. Out of what? Out of his principles? Stupid, how stupid. These men are strange. I can never understand them. Angela shrugged her shoulders in bewilderment and hurried to Selena, who the doctor had allowed to visit in the ward. Selena watched Harry stride down the street with a smile. He had only recently started walking, and his steps were still tentative, but he was trying. Walking down the street, Selena held her son at first, worried about him falling, but Harry didn't like it. He waved away his mother's hands and frowned his dark eyebrows, just like Archie. Selena longed for her husband. As she rejoiced in her son's progress, she found herself thinking how much she wished Archie could see it, to see Harry grow and rejoice with her. Her husband kept his word and sent money every month. He even tried to call sometimes, but the conversations were very difficult for Selena. She stopped picking up the phone when Archie called, and eventually their communication was reduced to dry correspondence when Archie asked how they were doing, and she replied that everything was fine. Once again thinking about her husband, Selena walked beside Harry, adjusting to his small steps. They were strolling near their driveway, and then a loud, cheerful voice sounded behind them as always. "Oh, who's taking those little steps? Is that Harry walking like that? What a big boy we have here." Harry smiled happily and wandered over to Angela, who was his godmother. Angela grabbed her godson in her arms and began to twirl him around, delighted by his gleeful laughter. Selena's friend had drastically changed her mind about children when Harry came along. She spent a lot of time with her godson and rejoiced in his successes as much as Selena herself. Now Angela wanted to have a child more than anything else in the world, and was carefully searching for candidates for the role of father. He didn't have to be her husband. In her opinion, he should just fit in appearance and health. Now Angela looked at every man she met with the eyes of a predator, but she hadn't met the perfect candidate yet. After petting Harry for a while, Angela let him go and whispered in Selena's ear, "I've already thought of something to give my godson for his 1-year birthday. It's been a long time coming, but he's going to love it. I won't even tell you yet. It'll be a surprise." Chattering with her friend, Selena turned away from her son just for a second and immediately heard his loud crying. Stumbling, the baby fell and tore his palms apart. But before Selena could, a man walking by jumped up to the boy. He lifted Harry to his feet and, getting down on one knee, spoke to him cheerfully. "What's this, such a big boy, and crying over a simple scratch? No need to cry. You and I are men, and men don't cry, do they?" He winked at Harry, and the boy began to calm down, as if he really felt like a man. No longer crying, the boy showed his soiled and scratched palms to his mother, who came running over. While Selena tried to rinse the palms of her son's hands from the water bottle that was always in her bag, Angela spoke coquettishly to the man. Lately, the woman had been on the hunt, treating every male as prey. And this one, it must be admitted, was quite good. Tall, broad-shouldered, good-looking. Selena took Harry in her arms and looked at the man carefully. "I think I've seen you before. Your face looks familiar." The man smiled. "Of course it does. You always walk here with your son at this time, and I go to lunch at that cafe around the corner. I work as a sales consultant in a building supermarket." The man pointed to the shopping mall opposite Selena's house. "My name is Billy, by the way." Angela faintly cringed when she heard that the man was just a salesman, but nevertheless continued her onslaught on him. But to her disappointment, the man paid no attention to her at all, talking only to Selena and Harry. After a little chatting, Billy ran off to work, not forgetting to wave at Harry. "An interesting specimen," Angela said thoughtfully, looking after him. "It's a pity he's more interested in you." "What a stupid thing to say," Selena laughed. "He talked more with Harry. He probably has a child about the same age." Very easily, he found common ground with Harry. "Well, maybe," Angela replied. "But I don't really care about that. By the way, you know I'm not getting married. But as a potential father for my future child, I could consider him." That was the end of the discussion of the new acquaintance. But Selena was not surprised when the next day during their walk with Harry, Angela came to them again. Selena guessed Angela expected to meet Billy. And Billy showed up, which wasn't surprising if you went to the cafe at this time every day. The man didn't walk by. He stopped to chat with his new acquaintances. But no matter how Angela tried to pull the blanket over, all the man's attention was on Selena with Harry. It went on like that for a couple more days. Then Angela gave up, stopped coming at that time. But Billy showed up like clockwork, always stopping and spending half an hour with Selena and the boy, referring to the fact that his lunch was an hour long. Selena loved chatting with the positive Billy, and Harry looked forward to his appearance. Meanwhile, the boy's birthday was approaching. Selena had mentioned to her new acquaintance that she had bought her son a children's sports complex for the youngest children, but she wasn't sure if she could assemble it. Billy excitedly offered to help, but Selena hesitated. Talking to Billy while she walked was one thing, but letting him into her apartment was another. She didn't know anything about him except where he worked. Selena asked, "And your wife, she won't mind you helping a single woman?" "What wife, Selena? What are you talking about?" Billy smiled. "I don't have a wife and never have. I'm lonely as a finger." "I thought from the way you were talking to Harry that you had children of that age." "No, I don't. I don't have kids and I've never been married. The reason I'm good with kids is because I have 2 nephews. I used to love taking care of them until I went to Washington. I'm not from around here. I'm from Trevor. I decided to make a change, so I came here. I thought maybe I'd meet my destiny here. And here I met you." Billy looked meaningfully at the embarrassed Selena. She wasn't ready for such a turn of events, and she didn't consider Billy in that way. In fact, Selena didn't look at men. Her heart was firmly occupied with Archie, the thought of whom she would not let go. Nevertheless, Selena let herself be persuaded and allowed Billy to come over to her and Harry's house tonight to help with the assembly of the sports complex. Unlike Archie, who had squealed at the size of Selena's apartment when he first come to see her, Billy hadn't paid any attention. As it turned out, the man's hands grew from the right place. He was done assembling the complex pretty quickly, but he was in no hurry to leave. Billy played with Harry late into the night and seemed to enjoy it. Selena had no choice but to feed Billy dinner, which he gladly agreed to. The man left only after Selena had hinted to him quite explicitly that it was time for Harry to go to bed. But before that, the man had asked to attend the boy's birthday party, saying that he had already thought of something to give him. Selena was embarrassed to refuse Billy after his help. Billy walked out of Selena's driveway satisfied. Everything seemed to be going well for him this time. He had been to Harry's birthday party today and seemed to have cemented a good opinion of himself. Maybe he'll get more out of Selena than he had with the previous women. Billy had been living in Washington for almost 2 years now, and he had come here with the very definite purpose of finding himself a well-to-do woman and living off her. Billy had never liked to work, and a friend told him that in Washington, there are a lot of wealthy and single women who are happy to receive male attention, and Billy had the huge plus of attractive looks. He knew his worth and wanted to take advantage of it. Unfortunately, his previous relationship had ended badly. Then he set himself as a victim, a woman much older than himself, who was the widow of a rich man. Billy managed to gain her trust. The old woman seemed to fall in love with him like a cat and let him live off her. But then he asked her for a large sum of money, claiming that he was involved in a murky story and he had a debt. The widow gave him the money, but at the same time hired a detective to follow the young lover. That's when she found out how easily and cheerfully he squandered her money in clubs with girls of easy virtue. The woman had thrown Billy out of her house without even a squeak. I didn't want to work, so Billy had to find himself a new cash cow. He found out about Selena at a club, having met a chatterbox who worked at a movie studio. When she got drunk, she told him about her colleague, who was abandoned with a child, and who, nevertheless, got everything easily because she didn't need money. Carefully finding out the details from Selena's neighbors, Billy was pleasantly surprised to learn that she owned a huge 4-room apartment. And how much could such an apartment be worth? I can't even imagine. This time, Billy decided to approach the matter more carefully and meticulously. He even got a job near Selena's house. He found out what time she was out with the baby and patiently walked by, looking for the right moment to meet her. The timing was perfect when Harry fell. The fact that this woman had a child was a good thing. Billy always knew the best way to get to a chicken mom was through her kid. If the kid likes the kid, the mom likes the kid. So Billy began his acquaintance by flirting with the boy. If he wanted to, he could get along with kids, though he couldn't stand those backbreakers. Then Billy got persistent. He asked to come to the apartment and to the birthday party. At the party, the man spent most of the time with Harry and perfectly saw Selena likes it, and the boy didn't want to let Uncle Billy go. And that's good, that's very good. It was just a pity that tomorrow he had to go back to that hated job. Billy hated to work on principle, much less to work as a salesman, when he had to smile and please unfit customers. That wasn't why he'd come to Washington, D.C., to be an errand boy. He had far-reaching plans. The children's birthday party was over, and the guests had dispersed. Selena had invited some of her colleagues from the movie studio with small children. Harry couldn't tear himself away from the many presents, but the day had been too eventful, and he fell asleep cradling the talking teddy bear that Uncle Billy had given him. Angela helped Selena clean the apartment, but she was in no hurry to leave. She really wanted to discuss Billy. So Selena, I see our salesman has become a frequent visitor. Anything going on between you two? Not yet, but, I'm willing to think about it. Billy really liked Harry, and that's the most important thing. Archie left us, and I can't stop thinking about him, and it's wrong. Maybe to get Archie out of my head, Billy's the way to go. Then again, I've got a boy growing up, and a boy always needs a male authority figure in front of him. Angela bit her lower lip slightly in thoughtfulness. When she considered Billy for herself, he'd suited her, because she'd only looked at his looks. But when she thought of Billy as a life partner for Selena, for some reason, Angela was sickened by the thought. "Selena, I wouldn't rush into anything if I were you. Billy's attractive, he's nice, he's positive, he likes to play with Harry. He's good. Isn't he too good? I don't know why, but I find this perfection very disturbing. A man's got to have some flaws. Archie had plenty, but Billy doesn't seem to have any. It's like the ideal for a single woman with a baby. Doesn't that bother you?" Selena laughed and put her arm around her friend's shoulders. "Angela, don't be jealous. I know perfectly well that you wanted to get Billy yourself. But it so happened that he liked me better. So it's not fate. You'll meet someone else. You'll be fine." Angela was silent for a moment and then changed the subject, starting to discuss how much fun Harry's birthday had been. She had originally thought that the conversation about Billy would end there. Realized that her words could be seen as jealousy. It made sense in their situation. Only it wasn't true. Angela wasn't jealous at all. She genuinely loved Selena and would have been happy for her happiness. She'd give her this Billy as she was sure he was what he seemed, but her gut told her he wasn't. A couple months later, Billy moved in with Selena. They started getting close about 2 weeks after Harry's birthday. One night, Billy didn't want to leave and took the initiative to kiss Selena, and she gave in. That was the first time Billy had a sleepover. Then it started to happen more and more often. And eventually, Selena offered to let Billy stay at her place so he wouldn't have to rent an apartment for nothing. Why go back to the rented place in the morning and then drive back here to work? Billy agreed with great joy, and the same day he moved his belongings, which fit into one small suitcase, to her place. Harry was happiest of all, as he had grown very fond of Uncle Billy. In the evenings when he returned from work, Harry would run into the hallway to meet him, and he would stay with him all evening. Billy was tired of playing the caring father, but he continued to play the part through gritted teeth. Sometimes he wanted so badly to spank the fidgety boy. When Angela came to visit, she saw the idyll that reigned in the house. She could be happy for her friend, but for some reason Angela couldn't, not knowing what it was about Billy that made her so tense. But she didn't talk to Selena about him anymore, thinking that time would put everything in its proper place. Selena had already suffered enough. She deserved to be happy, and now she looked quite content, even though she didn't love Billy. Angela knew that for sure, because that wasn't what she had been like with Archie, whom she loved to bits. Selena looked down at the cool dinner. Billy was late coming home from work, something that had never happened before. He came home at the same time every night, and she had gotten used to it, cooking him a nice dinner and waiting for him. But today, it had been 2 hours since the store where he worked had closed, and Billy was still gone. Selena was about to call the man, but she heard the front door open. Billy had the keys that had belonged to Archie before. Selena had given them to the new man almost immediately so that he wouldn't have to call and wait for her to open the door. Selena saw Harry walk over to greet Uncle Billy, but the man's usual cheerful greetings were not heard. Billy came into the kitchen, where Selena was waiting, warming up the cool dinner, sad and lost. He refused dinner and sank down at the kitchen table with his hands on his head. "Is something wrong?" a worried Selena asked. "Yes, it is, Selena. It's happened. There is a big shortage in our store, and not only am I being fired, but they are making you pay for it." "And it wasn't my fault," Billy said with a confused expression. "I didn't take anything, and I don't have the money to pay the shortfall. You know, that's just the way I am. I can't save. I can't save money. I don't know what I'm gonna do now." Billy folded his hands on the table in front of him and laid his head down on them with a heavy sigh. Selena was a little confused at first, but hurried to encourage Billy. "Billy, what's the matter with you? It's not the worst thing that can happen in life. You don't have to get so upset about it. How much is your shortfall?" A lot," Billy moaned without raising his head. "Over 200,000. Where can I get that kind of money?" Selena smiled. "Well, it's not such a huge sum. I'll give you that money." Billy raised his head sharply and stared at Selena's face in bewilderment. "Is it a small sum to you?" "I've never inquired, but Selena, where did you get the money from? You're on maternity leave. I don't think you get much." "I don't get much, but I have money. My father left me a bank account and some shares from which I get a monthly income, so we can easily pay off the shortfall with you without compromising ourselves." "But I can't," Billy exclaimed, raising his eyebrows indignantly. "I can't take the money from you. What would I be in your eyes? I'm out of a job, and I don't know when I'll be able to pay you back, or if I'll be able to pay you back at all." Selena walked over to Billy and put her hands on his shoulders. "Don't worry about it. I don't expect you to give me that money. Understand, money isn't the most important thing in life. It's you and me together. That's what matters. And how can I stay away from you when I can help you? You don't have to give me anything back. By the way, I can see why you couldn't save anything. You spent your entire paycheck on me and Harry, always buying him toys. So take the money, pay off your shortfall, and don't think about anything. And the job, Selena, I'm out of work, and I don't know when I'm gonna get a new one. Will you want to live with me now?" The woman laughed. "Please don't make me so mercenary. I didn't live with you for your paycheck." After much persuasion, Billy let himself be persuaded by Selena's money. And the very next day, he paid off the shortfall, which, by the way, he didn't have. In fact, the man was dead tired of working, so he figured out a way to quit his job and still make a profit. Was it for nothing that he'd spent so much time tending to Selena and her offspring? He could finally rest without having to get up in the morning to go to the store he hated. And with all this, you will not have to think about money. Selena herself will lay out everything on a silver platter with a gold leaf, with the right approach. The main thing is not to relax and continue to pussyfoot with her and her spinagrism. Single women are so hungry for attention. After he quit his job, Billy started getting up at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. He'd eat and leave the house, supposedly to look for a new job. The man would return late at night, tired and frustrated. Billy complained to Selena that he had to go to job interviews all over Washington, D.C., and taking public transportation took too long. One day, in a half-joking manner, Billy blurted out, "It's too bad you don't have a car. You could drive me around looking for a job, and you get a little more out of it than staying at home all day." Selena perked up. "You know, I've been thinking about it myself. While Harry and I were living alone, we didn't need a car, and I don't like driving. I haven't driven in a long time. I'm used to it. We can buy a car if you drive it. How would you like that?" "Really?" Billy exclaimed with joy. "You can afford a car too." "No, really? That would be great. Unless, of course, it's really bad for your budget." "It won't," Selena reassured the man. "Tomorrow we'll go with you to the car dealership and choose a car for us." "Not us, but you," Billy corrected Selena. "I don't want to be an accessory. This car will be yours alone. But I'll be your personal driver if you want." The next day at the car dealership, Selena was looking at mid-price cars. Billy, on the other hand, was magnetically drawn to expensive cars, especially the Land Cruiser, which Selena had not planned to buy. But when Selena saw how the man's eyes glistened with joy when he looked at this expensive car, she decided to take it. Although Billy discouraged her, saying that he was just dreaming of such a car, and that she could buy something simpler. Dreams should come true, joked the woman, and went to formalize the expensive purchase. When they, with the manager of the car dealership, sat down at the table for registration, Selena realized with alarm that she had no documents with her. First, she rummaged through her purse, trying to find them there, and then she dumped all the contents of her bag on the table. But in vain, there were no documents. How could she have forgotten them at home, since she always had them in her purse? Billy was visibly upset. "How could it be, Selena?" he scolded the woman. "We went to buy a car, and you forgot the papers. Now we have to drive all the way home again, and Harry's tired. Here I am, always carrying all my papers with me." Billy patted his breast pocket. Selena looked at her son sitting in Billy's arms. The child did look tired. Then a bold idea occurred to her. "Give me your papers, we'll put the car in your name." No, that's impossible. This car should be yours." "Why should it be? Who decided that? Who cares who the car is registered to?" "Give me the documents," I said. Selena demandingly held out her hand. The man reluctantly reached into his breast pocket, pulling out his documents. Until the last, while the manager was doing the paperwork, Billy shook his head, muttering, "No, this isn't right." The checkout manager went outside for a smoke and watched a brand new Land Cruiser roll out of the dealership, its polished sides gleaming in the sun. The manager grinned and thought, "That's why women are all so stupid. Everything is so obvious." At the wheel of the car sat Billy, bloated with importance. He had already praised himself 100 times for having thoughtfully taken her papers out of Selena's bag. Everything had gone exactly as he had planned, and what a brilliant strategist he was. Knows how to push a woman's buttons. Told her about the child's fatigue, and whoops, he's got the car in his pocket. Now, even if things go wrong with Selena, if she stops sponsoring him, they'll never get that car back. It's his property now, and you can't take it from him with your teeth. It had been a long time since he'd bought the car, and Billy still hadn't found a job. And it seemed as if he had never looked for one, living quietly on Selena's money. It didn't bother her at all. On the contrary, she was glad that Billy was spending so much time with her and Harry. Sometimes in the evenings, Billy left the house, feeling a keen desire to ride with the wind, as he put it. Selena, who was afraid of high speed, stayed at home. But she didn't mind that either. Every man needs his own space. Sometimes he needs to be alone. But Angela did. She was beginning to resent the state of affairs in Selena's family. One evening when Billy had gone for a drive, Angela, who had come to visit her godson and found them alone again, began to say to her friend, "Selena, what's going on with you two? Why isn't Billy looking for a job? Where is he now? He's driving around alone in your car. Is he driving around alone? Are you so sure about him?" "Yes, I'm sure," Selena shrugged. "At first he took Harry and me with him. But Billy likes a lot of speed, and I don't like it, especially with the baby in the car. So I don't mind if he goes for a ride by himself once in a while. A ride alone. Lives on your money. Rides in your car. And about working and not giving a shit. You think that's normal? Let's say he's looking for a job. He's just looking for something better than a store clerk. I'm not rushing him. We have enough money. And as far as trust goes, yeah, I trust Billy. And I wasn't afraid to put the car in his name." "You did what?" Angela gasped with indignation. "You put the car in his name? Are you stupid, Selena? I didn't expect that from you. You know, no matter what Archie does to you, I've been on his side lately. You're still married to him, officially, I mean. And yet you're living with another man without telling him. And Archie sends you money every month. A lot of money, by the way. And you're buying another man's car. If someone had told me that about you before, I wouldn't have believed it. Selena, what's wrong with you?" At these words of her friend, already Selena lost her temper and raised her voice at Angela. "What are you thinking? That I'm spending Archie's money on my new man? I'm not. I haven't spent a dime of what Archie sends me. I set up an account in Harry's name and I put all of his father's money into it. Billy and I live on my own money. You've forgotten how Archie left us and how you comforted me and called him a jerk. And now all of a sudden he's a good guy. If you must know, I still love him and I can't get over it. If Archie left me alone at night like that, I'd be nervous. But when Billy does it, I don't care. He's a very nice man though, and I hope I can love him someday because there's a lot to love about him." Selena was quiet for a moment and then continued in a much calmer voice. "You're probably right about Archie and I not being divorced. I owe it to him to let him know that I have someone else. It's only fair to him. Let him file for divorce. You know, Angel, when he said he was taking it slow, I was glad. I hoped he'd come to his senses, want to see his son, and come back to us. But with each passing month, that hope faded, and now it's gone. So maybe it's time to get a divorce. You're right about that. I was sure he'd come back to you. Only now did Archie realize how much he wanted to be behind the wheel of the very car that had taken his family away. Or any other car, or no car, it didn't matter, just as long as he was next to them. Never mind all the principles and the oaths. It's just too bad it can't be undone now." Selena and Billy went to the supermarket that night to get groceries. It was probably the only place they ever went together. Many times Selena had suggested that Billy leave Harry with Angela and go to the movies or the theater, where they often went with Archie. But Billy wasn't interested, he refused, and the woman resigned herself to stop calling him. After stocking up on groceries, the couple returned home. Billy took the bags into the hallway and ran out, telling Selena that he would be gone for a while, to get some air. The man jumped out of the driveway and the car alarm beeped. He had already opened the driver's door when he heard a loud, snide voice behind him. "Well, hello, hubby. I've been looking for you for a long time." Billy was startled to see his wife in front of him. He had always been a little afraid of this bossy, cruel woman, and he couldn't understand how he had married her 10 years ago. Married, of course, as they say, by chance, Leslie was already pregnant. But still, there was a feeling that Leslie simply forced him into this marriage, married him by force, and he did not have time to escape. But he had run away afterward, having been married to Leslie for almost 8 years, and Billy didn't care that he was leaving 2 kids behind. He was sick of being broke all the time. Leslie was always nagging, forcing him to work harder, and Billy hated working. In principle, for 8 years they got along with Leslie. If it wasn't for the perpetual lack of money, maybe Billy wouldn't have run away. And though he didn't like other people's children, he still had his own. He was, you might say, attached to them, but that didn't stop the man. For 2 years he hid from his wife, and from the heavy family life, pulling all the veins out of him. Billy's mouth was instantly dry when he asked his wife, "How did you find me?" "Never mind, hubby. Let it remain a mystery, for there must be mystery in a woman." Leslie laughed rudely. "Isn't there anything else you want to ask me?" Billy looked around. It seemed like Selena should be busy right now, sorting through bags of groceries. But what the hell as she looked out the window and saw him and Leslie? How would he explain it then? So Billy ran around the car and opened the passenger door hospitably. "Come on, Leslie, let's go for a ride." "Let's go for a ride," said Leslie, and sitting down on the seat, she began to look around the car with admiration. "You've got a good job, Billy. You ride around in a car like this and you don't give a damn what your kids eat. And they ain't eating hardly nothing. They're starving. Their daddy doesn't pay child support, he's hiding." He ran away, the bastard, and forgot about his kids. Billy was concentrating as he drove down the road from the yard and kept silent. He needed to gather his thoughts. How to behave with Leslie, what to do next. Did she know about Selena? The man glanced at his wife as she examined the contents of the glove compartment. Of course, there were Selena's things, cosmetics, and Leslie slammed it shut with indignation. She noticed her husband's leering eyes on her and squealed, "Why are you squinting? Do you think I know about your grandmother? Don't get your hopes up. I know everything. How you live off her, how you don't work, how you roll around in her car. Before I approached you, I made some inquiries." Billy sighed heavily. "Well, you see, Leslie, you've got it all figured out." "Yes, I live off her, but I don't love her." Leslie exploded. "What are you talking about? Love her. Don't love her. I don't care. You think I'm jealous? You're stupid to be jealous. You've never loved anyone. I know exactly why you're living with that woman. You didn't love me, and you didn't love your children. But still, they're your children, and you have an obligation to them. You've tried to file for divorce, but that's never gonna happen, remember that. I will not give you a divorce, and I will not let you off the hook again. You will provide for me and your children. Right now, they're sitting alone in a rented shack on the outskirts of Washington. It's all I could afford, and I only paid a month's rent. The kids are starving, and you're living off the land, you asshole." The man was silent. He understood what his wife was getting at. She needs money, only money. And where could he get it? Living off Selena. Leslie didn't like Billy's silence, so she yelled even louder. "Why don't you say something? Do you even know how much child support you owe? We're not divorced, but I filed for alimony. I could sit the bailiffs on you right now for taking so long to find you. But I'm not gonna do that yet. You'll pay me anyway. Is your new lady rich? Nice apartment car, and we don't have a dime to our name. Your kids, don't they deserve better? Make that chicken sell the apartment. Take all her money and we'll go away, far away. You'll live with us. I'll never let you go again." "What are you talking about?" Billy's scared. "What do you mean you're forcing me to sell the apartment? What do you think she is? Crazy? Selena would never do that. She's been giving me the stink eye lately, and I'm thinking of getting a simple job. I'm even thinking of getting an easy job." Leslie mocked her husband. "God, what kind of man are you? Where were my eyes? Other people work 3 jobs to support their families, and you? All you can do is get a job and live off a woman's money. But if that's the only talent you got, use it. Think of something, fool your Selena for your kids. You remember you have 2, a boy and a girl. What are their names again?" "Come on, Leslie, come on." Billy wrinkled his nose like a toothache. "I've never forgotten about the kids. But what are you going to tell me to do? You were always short of money. What was I supposed to do? Go broke? I can't, as you say, work 3 jobs. I know you can't. You can't do anything but wag your tail in front of women. So go on, keep on twirling it, but make sure the kids and I are provided for. Do you have any idea how much your Selena's apartment is worth? You and I could buy a decent house in the provinces and live off the rest of the money. Maybe we could start our own business. We'll figure something out." "Leslie, can you hear yourself?" Billy's howling. "She's not gonna sell the apartment. I can't make her do it." "Tell a lie, whatever it is that men tell in these cases. Said you've got a doggy, you're sick, you need money for treatment. Billy was still shaking his head in denial. She wouldn't believe me. I'm in front of her all the time. And even if she did, she wouldn't pay for my debts or my treatment. We've only been living together for a few months, and she doesn't have strong feelings for me. I can see that. Maybe she likes me, but that's about it. I know what it's like when a woman loves. Selena doesn't love me. Leslie lowered her head and suddenly became sad. When she spoke, there were tears in her voice. Yes, you know when you are loved. I loved you very much. You felt it. And after me, there were probably women who fell in love with you. And you betrayed me, my children, everyone you cared about. But only I know your true nature. You're a man who loves only himself and values his own well-being above all else. Taking care of your family was beyond you, wasn't it? And the kids missed you. They kept asking me where Daddy was. What was I supposed to tell them? Daddy ran away and hid from us because he wouldn't feed you. That's it, Leslie, that's it. Stop feeling sorry for me. It's not helping. I really can't do anything. All I can do is bilk Selena out of small amounts of money every now and then and give it to you. But there's no way to get her to sell the apartment. No, that's not enough, Leslie said very seriously. I'm not going to live patiently on your meager handouts. I've had enough of this, and now I need everything at once. Do what I say, but do what I say. Otherwise, I'll come straight to your apartment with the bailiffs. Now let's go to the kids and let them remember what Daddy looks like, and maybe you'll have a little conscience. What am I talking about? What conscience? All right, let's go see the kids. Speaking of money, give me what you've got now. We need to eat and pay the rent. Selena was sitting in a chair trying to read a book. Harry was playing nearby, rolling his toy cars on the floor. But the woman's thoughts weren't on her son right now, but on Billy, who was sprawled out on the couch in the next room watching soccer. It was the man's main occupation when he was at home, lying on the couch and staring at the television. Even Harry, sensing the detachment, began to approach Uncle Billy, less often asking to play with him. Selena was beginning to think that Billy was tired of being a child, tired of playing the role of caring father, and his true face was beginning to show through. Well, if Selena was wrong, but lately Billy had relaxed and paid no attention to her or the baby, and there was a look of irritation in his eyes when he looked at Harry. And the woman slowly began to realize that in her burning desire to forget Archie, she had let a man into her home without really knowing him, buying into his outer shell. But the shell, it had to be admitted, was good. There was nothing to fault. Selena was in no hurry to make final conclusions, but she began to probe the ground. From time to time, she asked how the job search was going. Billy waved her off, saying that he hadn't found anything suitable yet. What are you looking for? Selena asked. What kind of job would be right for you? Billy hesitated, surprised at the woman's assertiveness. She'd been fine with his vague answers before. Was she really starting to look at him? The man with a charming smile walked over to Selena and pecked her on the cheek. Well, so suitable, he spoke playfully, to spend more time with you and to make a decent salary. I want to provide for you and Harry, not just live next door. So you're looking for a job where you can spend as little time as possible and still get a big paycheck? Selena asked with a chuckle. Selena, you don't have to exaggerate. Billy frowned a little. Harry whimpered, hitting the corner of the table, and Billy rushed over to him, ending the conversation. That evening and for the next few days, he stayed close to the child again, as if he had come to his senses at first. But it already seemed suspicious to Selena. And so, the woman looked at the book, but could not read a line there. Her thoughts kept jumping back to Billy. Had she misjudged him? The woman slammed the book shut in one swift movement and strode resolutely into the next room. A thought occurred to her as to how she could test Billy. Billy, I've been thinking we should sell our car, she said, walking over to the couch where the man was lying. The man seemed to be thrown up on the spot. He abruptly took a sitting position and stared at Selena with wide eyes. What happened? Why? What's wrong with the car? You know, I guess we can't afford it after all. It's a big tax bill, and I made the mistake of buying such an expensive vehicle. It hit me hard. Let's sell it and buy something simpler. Billy was seething with anger. This was a car he'd originally considered his property, and he couldn't afford to sell it. Besides, Selena would probably keep the money from the sale. But how could he refuse now? If she said no, then he should just take the car and run away from this woman. That's what he would have done before. But now he couldn't. He was under a lot of pressure from Leslie, constantly sending threatening texts to his phone. So Billy now, just the opposite, needed to further gain Selena's trust, not undermine it. So he responded, "Whatever you say, selling is selling. Let me put up an ad. I'll meet the buyers myself." A somewhat relieved Selena left the room. And Billy thought, to advertise doesn't mean to sell. We can stall for time. Yes, that's what I'll do. I'll point out the car's flaws to the buyers myself so they won't buy it. Or I'll inflate the price just to meet them without Selena. Billy felt like a cornered animal. Leslie was pressuring him, and then there was the bad timing of Selena's eyes starting to open. Lying on the couch wasn't an option right now, so the man jumped up and went to the baby. Leslie had made an appointment for him today, and in order to leave quietly for it without causing Selena's displeasure, Harry's attention needed to be paid. After playing with the baby for about an hour, Billy told Selena that he would be gone for a while. The woman nodded silently. Billy drove to his wife with a heavy heart. He had nothing to please her. But every time he crossed the threshold of the rented apartment that Leslie and his children rented, the man realized that his wife was right. Why do their children have to live in this room? And this Harry is there with fat. Selena doesn't know what toys to buy him, what to feed him. And this little brat has everything and he can't be surprised with food. What did that snot-nosed brat do to deserve this? And what did Selena do to deserve it? She didn't earn that money on her own. So in Billy's opinion, it's only fair that his kids have a good life, too. Even though he'd abandoned them with ease, he realized they were his kids, and he felt differently about them than he did about other people's children. Leslie met her husband with a frown. "Well, what do you please? Have you thought of anything?" Billy pulled a chair closer to the exit, signaling that he wouldn't be here long, and sat down on it. "I didn't think of anything. Not only that, but Selena's starting to look at me, scrutinizing my every move like a microscope, chasing me to work. It's not been a workout between you and me. I knew you weren't capable of anything. I've got an idea. Think about what's most important to this Selena of yours. What would she give all her money for without looking?" Billy answered without a second thought. "Her son, of course, what else? Like all women. Women are narrow-minded. They're fixated on their offspring." Leslie looked at her husband almost hatefully. "I'd kill you for saying that. Now you've shown how you feel about your kids." "Well," Leslie waved her hand, which I'm surprised about. "I know what you're like. So, about Selena's son. That's basically what I thought. I mean, let's say he gets stolen and they demand a ransom for him. What would she do? Sell her apartment?" Billy broke into a cold sweat just thinking about it. He jumped up so sharply from the chair he was sitting in that it fell to the floor. "Are you out of your mind? What are you suggesting? I may like to live off women, but it's not a crime. I don't steal from anyone, they give it to me. And I'm not going to jail, I'm not a criminal." "Well, let's say I'm not going to jail either. So we gotta make sure we don't go to jail. You said it yourself, that broad's starting to look at you. Soon she's gonna kick you out with a bare ass. And then what? I ain't gonna feed your kids alone no more, and I ain't letting you go. We're gonna go back to scraping by on a dime. You're gonna have to go to work, you know that. And not just sitting around, but real work, maybe even physical work. So maybe it's worth the risk. Leslie, are you stupid? She's going to the police. They're gonna find out who we are right away. So you're gonna make sure she doesn't go to the cops. You're gonna stay with her 24/7s and talk her out of it. Send her a piece of hair from her beloved Harry's head and say, like they say in the movies, if you go to the police, the next one will be an ear, or something like that. And you'll scare her and talk her out of going to the police. And if she's desperate enough to go to law enforcement, we'll get her baby back fast." Selena was walking Harry on the playground in her backyard when she got a call from Billy. He'd gone to the drugstore to get some painkillers for his headache. He called her for advice on the best medicine to buy. The woman had been distracted by his conversation for a few minutes, and then looking around, she hadn't seen Harry around. At first, Selena wasn't too worried. She thought that the child had decided to play hide and seek with her and was now sitting behind the slide or behind the house. But the anxiety began to grow and gradually turned into panic when she ran around the playground and did not find her son on it. Billy, who had returned from the drugstore and approached Selena, found her hysterical. She approached the other moms on the playground with their babies and asked them if anyone had seen her Harry. All the women looked sympathetic, but shook their heads negatively. Only one said she might have seen a boy in similar clothes being led out of the courtyard by a hooded woman. but this witness didn't see her face, and she didn't pay any attention to the passers-by because the child was walking calmly. Hearing this, Selena, with nervous movements, took her cell phone out of her pocket and in a broken voice asked Billy, "Police? How do I call the police from my cell phone? Speak up." Billy didn't have time to answer anything because the phone in Selena's hands rang. She dropped the call. The woman was not interested in talking to unknown callers. She had to call the police immediately, but she didn't have time to dial the number again. The call came again. "Answer it," Billy said insistently to Selena. "Answer it, it might be important." Selena obeyed and brought the phone to her ear. Billy saw her face twist in horror at the words she heard in the receiver. The moms walking with their children looked up when they heard her hysterical scream. "Who are you? Give me Harry back. Give me my son back." Then Selena put the phone down and looked at it confusedly, as if not believing what she had just heard. The woman seemed frozen and continued to stare at the phone, unblinking. Then Billy jumped up to her, grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. "Selena, who was that on the phone? What did they tell you?" "They said they had Harry and told me not to call the police or I'd never see him again," Selena answered, unnaturally calm and loud. Billy looked around, worried that no one would hear what the woman was saying. He took her by the shoulders and tried to lead her toward the entryway. "Come on, let's go up to the apartment and talk there." "What apartment?" Selena looked at him in amazement. "What will I do there without my son? I'm not leaving here until I find him." Billy gave the woman a little shake again. "Selena, come to your senses. He's been kidnapped. We're not gonna find him here. Let's go upstairs and you can tell me the truth." The woman, like a mechanical puppet, let Billy take her home. There he sat her in a chair and brought her a glass of water. Then he asked, "Tell me clearly what you were told on the phone. Whose voice was it? Male? Female?" "It was neither male nor female. A computer voice, modified through a program," as if in a trance answered Selena. "This voice told me that they have my son and that we are being watched and our phones are being tapped. If we try to go to the police, I will never see my son again. That's what that voice said to me. That's what." Selena suddenly screamed. She was becoming hysterical. The woman continued to scream incoherently and threw the water glass aside. Billy had to slap Selena to bring her to her senses. Clutching her instantly reddened cheek, she stared at the man in bewilderment. "Calm down," he told her. "Now is not the time to be hysterical. Harry needs a cool-headed mother right now. Did they tell you anything else? Why he was kidnapped? What were their demands?" "Demands?" Selena asked in confusion. "Oh, yes, demands. Yes, they did. They said I have to give them money and they'll tell me the amount later. Call me back in the morning. Until then, they told me to sit tight and be quiet. That's what they said." "Then don't, Selena. We don't know who these people are. Aren't you scared for Harry? You keep trying to call the police. What if they fulfill their promise and do something to the kid? How are you going to live with that?" "I don't," Selena shrugged. "I'm not going to live without my baby. But I can't just sit around now, just sit and wait. I can't, do you understand?" "You have to." Billy tried to sober the woman up. "Let's wait for the kidnapper's next call and find out exactly what they want from you. Money, obviously. How much are they asking for? Selena, if it's no secret, how much do you have in that account you were talking about? Can you pay these kidnappers?" When Selena voiced the amount she had in her account, Billy inwardly gasped. This was something he hadn't expected. And the money from the sale of the apartment. Okay, Billy worked it out in his mind. Even if he sold the apartment at a low price, because of the urgency, plus the money from the account, it's a sum that would make a man dizzy. Leslie was right, that money could pay for the rest of his life. If he didn't spend it, of course. Billy spent the evening soothing Selena, who wandered around the apartment like a shadow and occasionally began to sob. As the time approached midnight, he put her to bed, giving her a sedative. The man himself lay beside her, keeping himself awake. He was afraid he would fall asleep and Selena would call the police. She'd been trying to do it all night. And the man was right. After lying down for half an hour, Selena got out of bed and went into the kitchen. Billy, who had snuck up behind her, saw the woman dialing the police number and snatched the phone out of her hands. "Selena, what are you doing? Don't you realize you could kill your son with that call? It may sound cruel, but it's true." The woman, despite the large amount of sedatives she had taken, became hysterical again. I don't know what's best. I'm scared. I can't sleep without Harry." It wasn't until about 3 in the morning that the sedative did its work, and Selena fell into a heavy, restless sleep. Then Billy got out of bed and quietly left the apartment. He went downstairs, stepped out of the driveway, and carefully placed a small, inconspicuous box under the bench. That was the plan. Then, sitting down on the bench, he called Leslie. So far everything was going according to plan, he said curtly into the receiver. But she tried to call the police, and I'm afraid to leave her alone. Come on, when you call in the morning, be more convincing, give her more fear. How is Harry, by the way? What's going to happen to him, your Harry? You better worry about your own. He's been crying all night, begging for his mommy. Now he's asleep. Did you find out how much she can ask for? How much she's got in her account? I did, Leslie, I did. I'm gonna tell you something that's gonna blow your mind. Maybe you're right, and maybe we're doing this for a reason. It's worth it. It was only 6:30 in the morning, and Selena was already sitting with her phone in her hands, staring at it. As if hypnotized, she stared into the dark screen, waiting for the call. Billy urged the woman to put the phone down and drink coffee, to calm down a little, but Selena didn't listen to his exhortations. The call rang at 8:30. Are you waiting? Asked the impassive mechanical voice. Waiting, and you tried to call the police. You were warned, we'll know everything. You and your boyfriend are under 24-hour surveillance. You shouldn't have tried to do that. You shouldn't have tried to do that. There's a box under the bench. There's a present for you in it. I'll call you back later. The phone beeped briefly. Selena jumped up and ran out of the apartment. Billy ran after her. With shaking hands, the woman pulled a small black box from under the bench, but she couldn't open it. She stared at the cardboard box and was afraid to take the lid off, afraid of what she might see inside. Billy opened the box for her, and they saw dark curly hair in there. It's Harry's hair. Selena recognized it immediately and burst into tears of relief. It's just hair. The woman was very afraid of seeing something worse in there. The second call came as soon as Selena and Billy went up to the apartment. Did you find our present? We thought we'd take pity on you for now. Next time it won't be hair. Trust me. You didn't take what we said seriously. We have nothing to lose. Decide for yourself whether it's money or the life of your child. How much do you want for Harry? Selena asked in a stammering voice. When she heard the answer, she shouted into the phone. But I don't have that much, no. Then the woman put the phone down and looked at Billy with widened eyes of horror. Disconnected, she said confusedly. They quoted such a sum. I don't have that kind of money. And they also said I have a week's time. I have to give them the money in a week. Yeah, it's a lot of money, Billy said. You have an account, but where can you get the rest of the money? The apartment. You could sell the apartment. Billy exclaimed, as if he just had an epiphany. The apartment is yours. Isn't it in your name? Of course it's in my name, Selena replied. It had never occurred to her that she could sell the apartment, but it would take a long time to sell it, more than a week. That is, if only at an undervalue through an agency. Selena grabbed her head. And then what would we do? Where would Harry and I live? Don't worry. Billy stepped towards Selena and put his arm around her. We'll figure it out somehow. I'll go to work. I'm with you. The important thing is to get Harry back. What if they don't bring him back? What if I give them everything I have and they don't give me the baby back? What then? It'll be too late to go to the police. We have to do it now. I don't know. Selena continued to hold her head and sway bitterly from side to side. What's the right thing to do? I'm ready to give everything. But all of a sudden, Billy, horrified, recoiled from the woman. What are you talking about, Selena? What police? Don't you care about Harry's life at all? Don't you get the point of this surprise in a box? Give them the money and be glad you had it and bought your child's life with it. Let's get down to business. What do we need to do first? Cash out your account or deal with the sale of the condo? The apartment, of course. I can cash out the account anytime I want. Well, or in a couple days with a pre-application. That won't take long. But the apartment? Let's go to the agency right now. Selena couldn't sit still. She needed something to do. And if it wasn't the police, then she'd have to start collecting money right away. She probably would have walked out of the apartment in her pajamas and down the driveway if Billy hadn't reminded her to get dressed. Angela was milling around outside Selena's driveway with a huge bag of Lego constructions in her hands that she'd bought for her godson. She dialed Selena for the 10th time, but she didn't pick up, and Angela didn't know what to do. Calls to the intercom didn't bring any results either. After tramping for 40 minutes near the entrance and not stopping to call her friend, Angela decided to leave and come back later. And then she saw a familiar car pulling into the yard. Barely waiting for it to park, Angela rushed to Selena, who was getting out of the Land Cruiser. "Where are you guys driving around? Why aren't you answering your phone? What's wrong with your phone?" Selena glanced at a disgruntled Billy. He was the one who had urged her not to pick up the phone from Angela, saying that it was better not to tell her anything either. Angela was too chatty. Angela, however, not noticing the scowling faces of her friend and Billy, began to open the back door of the car with the words, "Where's my sweet boy? Where's Harry?" Staring at the empty child's seat, she wondered, "Selena, where is Harry? Who did you leave him with?" "Let's go upstairs to our room," Selena replied glumly, and Angela only now noticed her face blackened with grief. They went up together, and when they got into the room, Selena sank down on the couch like an inflatable doll that had been abruptly blown out of the air. And once again she began to sob. Through her tears, Angela could barely understand what her friend was telling her. But Billy sat down next to her, and he added to Selena's story. Angela didn't sit down, she paced around the couch from side to side, and when she heard the rest of it, she exclaimed, "So it turns out if you completely catch out your account and sell the apartment, the amount will be just right. Am I right? You don't think it's strange?" "What's weird?" Billy answered in Selena's place. "These kidnappers said they're watching our every move. It's no wonder they know about Selena's account." Angela squinted her eyes and gave Billy a long look that made the man uncomfortable. Then she said, "Billy, can you leave the room? I want to talk to my friend alone." Billy didn't move and looked defiantly at Angela, then at Selena, as if seeking her support and not wanting to leave the room. But Selena said, "Come out please, Billy." Pouting resentfully, Billy got up from the couch, showing with all his appearance how undeservedly he was being insulted in this house. After waiting for a while, Angela opened the door, afraid that the man would overhear their conversation. And she was right. Billy was standing by the door, pretending to adjust something on the nightstand. At the sight of Angela peeking out, he retreated into the other room. Only then, with the door shut tightly behind her, did Angela begin to speak up to Selena. "Selena, what's going on? Your son has been kidnapped. And to raise the necessary amount of money for ransom, you need to sell the apartment." "Who suggested that?" "Billy suggested it," Selena replied quietly. "That's what I thought. He offered to sell the apartment, but the car. He didn't offer the car." "Of course not. It's in his name. Don't you still think his behavior is strange?" "Yes, I do. I didn't tell you this, but I've had my doubts about Billy for a long time. We'd even put in an ad to sell the car. And then this. But I don't think he'd steal Harry. Is he really that much of a scoundrel? I mean, who knows, who knows? I don't understand anything anymore. I can't think about anything but Harry. And you know what? Even if Billy is involved, I'll give them all the money they're asking for. Everything I've got. Just so long as they bring my son back to me, alive and unharmed. I've wanted to call the police so many times, but I'm afraid, Angel, I'm afraid." Angela looked at her friend with pity. She understood her. She wouldn't call the police herself, because it was scary, very scary, to make a mistake and jeopardize the little life of the boy she loved. Archie looked around. He didn't seem to have forgotten anything. The suitcases are stowed. Everything. Bridges burned, ticket bought. Last day in Washington. Tomorrow he leaves for permanent residence in Germany. It was a hard decision for Archie to make, but after seeing Selena with the man, he realized there was nothing holding him here anymore. The only thing he longed for before leaving was to see Selena with his son. But to his great regret, he was unable to do so. He'd spent several hours near the playground where Selena and Harry usually walked, but they hadn't shown up. Archie sighed heavily. The tickets were bought for tomorrow. There was a feeling of something wrong, of a wrong decision. But what else could he do? Stay? Try to get back into Selena's life? How? If she's perfectly happy with a new man now, Archie had already caused her enough pain. It wasn't worth bothering her again. Archie didn't know how to spend his last day in the city, but then his phone received a call from an unknown number. The woman's voice sounded familiar, but he didn't recognize it until she introduced herself. "This is Angela, Selena's friend. I realize it's silly to call you, because you're far away now and you can't help me." Archie's heart clenched in alarm. From the woman's voice, it was clear that good news should not be expected. He interrupted Angela. "I'm not far away. I'm in Washington right now. Is something wrong? Something with Selena? Angela was silent for a moment. The woman hadn't expected Archie to be in Washington, and she called him for advice. Though she knew Selena would object. So be it. Angela couldn't just sit back and wait when her godson was in danger. Selena's not thinking straight right now. She looked like a somnambulist in general. Angela had a suspicion that Billy was drugging her friend with some powerful sedatives so that Selena would do his bidding. Archie was not a stranger. He was Harry's father and, in Angela's opinion, had a right to know. When Archie was beginning to lose patience with the pause lingering in the phone, Angela spoke up. It happened, not with Selena. With Harry. I can't tell you everything over the phone. Come to my place. Memorize the address. When Archie hung up, he felt like he was suffocating. It was as if time had suddenly turned back and he was back there, to the bedside of his dying daughter. He felt the same way now. This is what he had feared when he decided not to have any more children. To feel that pain and helplessness again when you lose your child and can't do anything about it. The man looked around in a huff and caught a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror. His lost, faded look. What on earth was this? He hadn't even found out what had happened to Harry yet. He should pack up and go to Angela's immediately. No, I'm not losing this baby. No, not this. I will fight no matter what happens, thought Archie and started to hail a cab. Billy looked at Selena, staring at one point and sitting unmoving. She was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of tea clasped between her palms. The woman had long forgotten about him and sat immersed in herself, as if in a trance. Angela was not mistaken. Her friend had been acting so strangely the last few days for a reason. Billy had really given her a lot of sedatives. The woman became lethargic after them, but she was more easily compelled by them. He insisted on waiting, and she waited. She waited for the main event in her life at the moment, a nightly call from an unknown caller, hoping to hear Harry's voice in the receiver. She had pleaded with the mechanical voice, riddled with threats every night, and the kidnapper had taken pity. Now she was allowed to hear a few short words from her son. "Mommy, take me away," is what Selena heard from her son. The kidnapper would then take the phone away from him and usually end the conversation. But Harry's bitter crying, which came out along with his words when he was allowed to speak to his mother, was always in Selena's ears. Billy was freaking out. The deal to sell the apartment was dragging on. There were unforeseen complications, and it was clear that it wouldn't be possible to sell the apartment in a week. Selena had acquaintances who could help, something with registration, discharge. Billy did not go into details. The main thing was to know that the case was progressing. When it became clear that the apartment would not sell quickly, Selena, having waited for the kidnapper's call, tearfully begged for more time, explained why it was happening. The kidnappers went along with the woman. Of course, how could it be otherwise? Because Billy had talked to Leslie beforehand, warning her about the complications of the sale. The man was scared, and he offered his wife to take the money that Selena had in the account and not to wait for the sale of the apartment. But Leslie got into the taste, and this money seemed to her not enough, wanted to get everything. Although the woman then freaked out about Harry, who, as she put it, whining without ceasing, asking for his mother. No one looked at her rented apartment. The housing was paid in advance, and the neighbors knew that it was rented by a woman with 2 children, so they were not surprised by the crying from there. But this crying annoyed Leslie herself. In one of her phone conversations with her husband, she said she'd found a way to tame the brat. Billy suspected that Leslie was beating the baby, but he didn't care. The main thing was to keep a low profile so the neighbors wouldn't suspect anything. Frozen with a glass of tea in her hands, Selena spilled it onto the table when the phone on the table suddenly rang. She knew it couldn't be the kidnappers. They called in the evenings and it was still morning. And a glance at the screen convinced Selena of it. It was Angela calling. Selena spoke to her for a short time and hung up with one last thing to say. "Okay, I'll be right there." A worried Billy asked, "Where are you going?" "Angela asked me to come to her place." "Why else? You know the kidnappers are watching us, so maybe we shouldn't go out too much." "Well, if they're watching, they'll know I'm going to my friend's house. She withdrew her savings, and she wants to give it to me." Selena rose from the table, albeit a little sluggishly, and put her tea glass on the table, still untouched. "Angela asked me to come alone, so I'll probably call a cab. I'm afraid to drive myself, you know." "What kind of nonsense is that?" Billy blurted out. "Why do you have to take a cab when we have a car?" "And why? May I ask, does Angela want you to come alone? You know Angela doesn't sympathize with you. She makes no secret of it. Like I sympathize with her. Billy grumbled unhappily. But anyway, there's no need to call a cab. I'll drive you and stay in the car, but I won't go in. If that's the way it is, that's fine. Let's go, Selena said conciliatorily. As Billy drove Selena to Angela's house and waited for her in the car, his anxiety over Angela's call subsided. What's the big deal? His best friend wants to give him the money he needs right now. She'll probably give him everything she has. It's logical because Angela is also attached to this snotty little brat. What stupid creatures women are. They're so easily manipulated by spinsters, thought Billy. He was sure Angela wouldn't make any sudden moves, like calling the police. She's afraid, like Selena, of making an irreparable mistake. Selena took off her shoes in the hallway of Angela's apartment and noticed that her friend, for some reason, was very nervous. When she went into the room, she realized why. There was Archie, who had jumped up at the sight of Selena and was now standing there looking at her silently. Selena turned sharply to see her friend stomping behind her. Angela, what is he doing here? Did you tell him everything? What did you do? Why? Selena instantly shook off her sedative-induced lethargy. She was shaken by Archie's presence and Angela's actions behind her back. Angela, though she felt a little guilty, raised her voice too. Yes, I called Archie. I called him and I told him everything. Because I think he has a right to know. It's his son too. His son? What kind of son is he? Archie didn't want to know. Selena was arguing with Angela, trying not to even look in the direction of the silent Archie. He didn't need us, he left us. He doesn't care. No, he cares, Angela argued, and he's not a stranger to you. The woman lowered her voice and continued in a much quieter voice. I know, I saw him in the maternity ward, Selena, when you were in labor. He was there until the very end. I didn't tell you this, but I know for a fact, a man can't be so worried if he doesn't care. Selena, Archie interjected, our differences are not important right now. What is important is how to find and get Harry back. Harry, Selena whispered bitterly. Do you know Harry? He's your son and you've never even met him. I have, Archie lowered his head and continued, no longer looking Selena in the eye. I've seen him a few times, watched you when you were walking in the yard, but I didn't go near you, didn't want to disturb you, because I wasn't sure what I really wanted. And now you know what you want? The man laughed bitterly. Yes, I do now. The moment I saw you with another man, I was sure of what I really wanted. And when I realized I was too late, I don't know why I thought I could come back anytime. I'm sorry, Selena, I was wrong. I was afraid to live, to really live, afraid of the pain I'm feeling now. This fear for my child, you know I've already suffered a great loss, but now I realize there's no life without suffering. No life for me without you and my son. Selena couldn't take it anymore, she cried. Archie, everything you're saying right now, I almost don't care. I don't care about anything going on around me except Harry's return. That's all I've been living for the last few days. I'm afraid, terribly afraid of making a mistake and losing him forever. What do you plan to do? If I call the police, no, not right away. I won't let you do that. I'm scared. I already realized that. But Angela tells me that you suspect this Billy of yours. What about him? Yes, we do. And the more suspicious we get. Billy's been acting really weird, watching my every move, finding out how much money I've got, making more fuss about selling the apartment than I do. I'm a fool. I know it. I let a stranger in without looking at him, without recognizing him. You could say I didn't care. I was so desperate to forget. Selena cast a fleeting glance at Archie and continued in a near whisper, to forget you. At the woman's words, Archie stepped towards her and enveloped her in a hug. Selena clung to him with her whole body, clinging to him as if he were a bulwark of confidence. And Archie said, his voice hoarse with excitement, Selena, you're not the fool, I'm the fool. If I hadn't left you, none of this would have happened. But I'll fix it. We'll get Harry back, I promise. I'll do whatever it takes. When Selena came out of the driveway an hour later, Billy was finishing his phone call. No, I'm telling you, I can't show you the car right now, he said curtly and disconnected. Getting into the car, Selena asked, who was that on the phone? Is it from a car ad? Billy waved the woman away and tried to change the subject, but Selena wouldn't let him. No, you answer me. Did you turn down a potential buyer? Of course I did, Selena. What's this about meeting with buyers? We don't have time for this. What are you doing? I'm selling the apartment. Angela's giving me everything she has. What about you? You get calls from buyers and you turn them down when we need the money so badly. Billy's eyes went wide. He didn't know what to say, so he blurted it out. What are we gonna drive? What are we gonna drive? Just for your business now. What would we drive? A cab. Selena cut him off. Quickly call the buyer back and make an appointment. Right today, as soon as possible. A couple of hours later, the potential buyer inspected the car. He liked the car very much and was ready to buy it. Of course, Billy would have turned him down under a plausible pretext, but Selena was present at the meeting and insisted on it, no matter how much Billy discouraged her. During the checkout, the buyer had offered to pay by wire transfer, and Selena had given him her account number without even looking at Billy. The man gritted his teeth in frustration, but he couldn't argue. What would he have said? The rage against Selena was boiling up inside the man. In fact, he'd stopped liking her after he met Angela. She'd started acting differently, more confident. Billy could not understand the changes that had taken place in her, but they were there. Nothing, thought the man. You sold my car and took the money for yourself, but they'll come back to me anyway, and you'll be left destitute. I've got to scare you again. You're getting a little slack, darling. Billy took advantage of the moment when Selena was busy with a customer and went outside. He called Leslie and briefly gave her new instructions. That evening, when the kidnapper called as usual, Harry was crying into the receiver in a particularly pitiful way, and then Selena heard the loud smacking and hysterics of her child. After that, there was a short beeping sound in the receiver. Selena burst into sobs. They're hitting Harry. I heard it myself. What the hell is this? Billy cheered. He was the one who had asked Leslie to make Selena remember what she was really afraid of. He didn't like the woman's determination in selling the car. But despite her frustration, Selena remembered to do what she and Archie had agreed to do. She slipped a powdered sleeping pill into Billy's dinner, and after waiting until the man was sound asleep, she picked up the phone. Half an hour later, Archie walked into her apartment with a man she didn't recognize. This is Oliver, I told you about him. Archie introduced his friend to Selena. Selena nodded silently. Yes, Archie had told her about his friend who worked as a senior investigator. Once upon a time, Archie had done him a huge favor. Selena, after much persuasion, had given her permission to approach Oliver informally, not as a police officer, but as a friend. The men walked with Selena into one of the spare rooms and closed the door tightly behind them. Give me your phone, Oliver said, holding out his hand to Selena. The man did something with her phone for a while and then handed it back to the woman. All right now, unless this kidnapper of yours is a hacker, as soon as he makes a call, we'll know where it came from. All that's left to do is wait for that very call. Selena nodded, and then Archie approached her. Selena, where's Billy's cell phone? Why don't we take a look at it too, see if there's any suspicious calls? Yes, I was going to ask you to do the same, and I would also look at Billy's documents, Oliver said. Billy's phone had a lot of calls from unknown numbers. They were calling him about the car, Selena said. That makes sense, Oliver said thoughtfully. The ad calls from numbers, but this number is obviously not registered in our area. The call to it was made this afternoon, and before that at 5 in the morning. Selena woke up. I was asleep at that time. Who could he be calling at this hour on the sly? But if it was about the kidnapping, there'd be a lot of calls, but there were only 2. Calls like that are usually deleted, Oliver said authoritatively, and your Billy, if he's involved, has been cleaning them up. And these last 2, maybe he didn't have time, forgot. We'll find out who he was calling at night. By the way, did you bring his ID? And we'll find out everything we can about Billy. It'll be quick. I think I can do it by lunchtime today. With everything they needed done, the men left Selena's apartment. Oliver remained silent until he and Archie were in his car. Then he couldn't take it anymore. No, we're not doing this right. There's a serious crime here, child abduction. I'm having a heart attack. We need to raise the alarm and start a manhunt. Oliver, calm down. We agreed on everything. It's just you and me. Don't explain anything to anyone. Selena is terrified of this. I swore to her. You will act in silence as my friend. I'm honestly scared myself. It's my son. Okay, let's keep it that way for now. but I can't trace the kidnapper's call until he calls Celine's cell phone. But I can run a background check on this Billy guy. That's fine. I'll make it quick. Wait for the call. Archie didn't wait long. Oliver called close to lunchtime. I've got some exciting news for you. I don't know whether you'll be surprised or not, but your Billy is officially married. Although he doesn't have a stamp in his passport, I don't know why. His marriage is valid and 2 children have been born into it. Are you surprised? Not really? Then I'll continue. This is the number that Billy calls at night. It's registered to his wife, Leslie. Well, I'll tell you what, Leslie's in DC right now. I have my text run a billing trace on the caller's location. Did I do a good job? You sure did, Archie exclaimed. Text me Leslie's current location. I will, of course, but it's not an exact address, but a location, mind you. Having found out the location, Archie drove there without delay. And on the spot, it was not difficult for him to find out the address where a woman with 2 children rented an apartment. They turned out to be very noisy tenants, and after asking people living in the area, Archie came across a grandmother who confidently pointed to the apartment 1 floor above her. A rude woman lives there, the grandmother almost spat, with her orgoloids who yelled day and night. Then Archie pulled some money out of his pocket and asked slyly, "Grandma, wouldn't you like to make a little extra money?" Leslie, shifting her eyebrows angrily and looting over the whimpering Harry, yelled, "Eat your porridge," I said. "You're going to starve to death, and I've got to get money for you. Your mama's not in a hurry to pay up." The boy, fearfully shrugging his shoulders, began to hurriedly swallow the frozen porridge, terribly afraid of this evil aunt. The door of the apartment rang. Leslie was alertly alarmed. Who could it be? No one usually came to them. "Chew your porridge and sit quietly, or you'll get it," the woman said at the boy and went to open the door. A small, gaunt old woman stood at the door, but she was very determined. "I'm the neighbor from downstairs," she shouted. "I'm the downstairs neighbor," she shrieked. Leslie, confused, had no time to do anything, as this old woman, pushing her aside, burst into the apartment. She stormed through the apartment, checking all the faucets. The grandmother saw 2 children playing in the only room and another frightened younger boy leaning over a bowl of porridge in the kitchen. With that, Grandma left the apartment, nudged in the back by recovering Leslie. "Well, are you sure? I'm not leaking anything." What a mess. Although Leslie was angry, she saw nothing suspicious in the visit of the neighbor. Grandmother went downstairs and held out her palm to Archie, who was standing there. "Give me the money. I've looked around. There's a woman and 3 children in the apartment." "You're not mistaken. Are you sure it's 3 kids?" That's right. A girl and 2 boys. One's just a little kid. This one." Archie showed his grandmother a picture of Harry on the screen of his phone. The old woman squinted her eyes, scrutinized the screen. "I can't see very well without my glasses, but yes, it looks like him." "Yeah, that's him." Archie jumped out of the cat-smelling entryway, gulping for air. How quickly it had all happened. He found him. He found his son. More than anything, he wanted to rush into that apartment and wrestle Harry from Leslie's grasp. But he was a little afraid. What if she saw him and hurt the child? The man had promised Oliver to report all his actions, so he found the strength to call his friend first. Hearing the news, Oliver told Archie to do nothing and wait until he arrived on the scene with the task force. "But I can't wait," Archie exclaimed. "When you get here again, I'm going to go and get my son right now." "Don't you dare. You can't do that. Come to your senses, Archie. We'll be here very soon." "Even if you succeed and you take that woman's baby away from her, what then? Leslie's gonna run off with Billy. They'll run away, and we won't be able to prove anything. You want the criminals to go unpunished. Stand down and wait," I said. "And don't tell Selena anything yet. Under no circumstances, do you hear me? She'll betray her joy in front of Billy." Leslie was very surprised when only half an hour after the neighbor's visit, her apartment was called again. She looked through the peephole and saw the same old woman living downstairs. With irritation, she opened the door, swearing at the same time. "Yes, what do you all want from me?" The woman had no time to do anything, as uniformed men burst into the apartment, pressed her face against the wall, and handcuffed her hands. The last to run in was a tall black-haired man in civilian clothes. He rushed over to the frightened, huddled Harry and grabbed him in his arms. The boy cried, and the man kept stroking his head and repeating, "Don't be afraid, it's over. I'm your daddy, you hear me, Harry daddy? I'm going to take you to your mommy." Oliver walked over to Leslie, who was facing the wall. He removed the woman's handcuffs and shoved her own cell phone, which he found on the table, into her hands. Now call your husband Billy. Tell him to get here right away without explaining anything. Leslie was pale, but her eyes remained dry. My children, she pointed with her hand toward the frightened boy and girl. They are scared. Can I go to them? Oh, you don't feel sorry for your own children? Can you mock other people's children? Oliver grinned. I'll allow you to calm the children only after you call your husband here. Make up some plausible excuse and tell him to come right away. Leslie unconsciously picked up her cell phone and dialed Billy. Billy, get over here right away. Something's happened to Harry. I can't tell you over the phone. Come over right away. When Billy ran into Leslie's apartment, he didn't have time to see anything as he was met with a punch to the face in the hallway. Archie punched him furiously, all the while repeating, "This is for my son. This is for my wife." A young guy from the task force rushed to pull Archie away, but Oliver stopped him, saying, "Don't, he's entitled to it. The bastard's getting what he deserves." A happy Selena kept her arms around Harry, who had both arms around her neck and couldn't get away from his mom. Archie was looking at this picture with a happy smile. He showed up on the doorstep with his son in his arms, not long after Billy had jumped out after an unexplained phone call, mumbling something inaudible to Selena. "Thank you," Selena whispered, peeking out from behind Harry's shoulder. "Thank you." "There's nothing to thank me for," Archie replied. "I did what any father in my position would have done. If I was a good father, I would have been there for you and none of this would have happened. Selena, will you let me stay with you? Forever?" The woman asked again in a whisper. "Forever," Archie replied. Selena, one hand still holding her son, held out the other to the man, and he took a quick step and enclosed his family in an embrace. For a long time, the three of them stood embraced. Family? The next day, Selena and Archie went to the police station. There, Selena, under Oliver's guidance, wrote a report about the kidnapping of the child. When she finished writing, the woman looked up at Oliver. "What's going to happen to them now? Billy and his wife, will they go to jail?" "They'll go to jail. They'll go to jail. I promise you that. They'll do the maximum time they can under this article. Billy right now, but Leslie's not sure yet. Maybe she'll get a deferment until the kids are old enough. But I'll do my best to make sure that doesn't happen." "What about the kids? They have 2 kids? What about them now? Where are they going? And if Leslie goes down, will they go to an orphanage?" "No, they won't. This Leslie turned out to be a pretty young mom. She got a call. She's on her way to pick up the kids. But if this grandmother raised her daughter in her own image, maybe the kids in the orphanage would have grown up better. Who knows?"
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.